Welcome to another edition of Talk City Greensboro, produced by GTN, featuring interviews and events happening around town. It's an easy way to stay in the know while you're on the go. Subscribe to Talk City on iTunes, Pandora, and SoundCloud so you can keep up with what's going on in Greensboro city government and beyond. As always, I enjoyed being your host today, along with my esteemed co-host, Rosemary Clyburn.
Steamy in here, huh? Yeah. Hey, so glad to be here. There are so many departments within the city of Greensboro that kind of have to come together to make everything work like a well-oiled machine. And we're going to try to dive into some of those so that you understand kind of better how our city works and how it can work for you. So today we're talking about code enforcement. Chief of Compliance is Larry Roberts. He's here with us today. Hello.
Hello.
All right, that sounds a little scary. Code of enforcement. What does that mean? What is this office all about?
Well, we try not to be too scary. We try to come out with a little bit of a lighthearted approach. So typically, if you see us, unfortunately, there's probably some violations going on, with it be a junk vehicle, a nuisance of tall grass, or you might have some issues in regard to your housing itself.
And so that means somebody's probably called you to come check it out.
We're majority is complaint driven. We do have a couple proactive teams out and about that kind of eyeball problematic areas, but typically if we're there, it's because the resident complained.
Gotcha. All right, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute.
Right, sure will. And I want to ask you a little something about yourself, too. Really quick. How'd you get in this line of work, public service? I know you've been with the city since you were 18. You worked in the police department. What influenced you to get in this line?
That's a lot. So I'm from Walkertown, North Carolina, if y'all ain't picking that up in the accent already.
All right.
So I graduated East Forsyth High School on a Friday.
Where Chris Paul went. Was that his school?
No, he went to Louisville.
Okay.
I beat them in wrestling.
Okay, gotcha.
But to get back to, I graduated on Friday, and then I started the city of Greensboro that Monday.
Wow.
So it literally was a quick transition. Here's your degree. Here's your a pair of steel-toe boots from Water Resources saying, welcome to the crew.
So what were you doing?
They had me working on the outfall crew, which is they handed me a weed eater and a chainsaw. Said if it's to your knee, weed eat it. If it's falling down, chop it up. I was like, I think I got this. So I dabbled in that for a bit, and then opportunity came open with the code enforcement group right when I was turning 21, which is funny because Danny Nall was the code enforcement officer or the code enforcement manager back then, and Danny was having a birthday the first week that I was there, and it was on my birthday too.
Oh,
and then one of the guys knew it. He's like, well, shoot, Larry, how old are you turning? Well, I'm turning 20. And Danny cocked his eyes over there at me because they only hired me for a week. He's like, you're 20? I said, yes, sir, I am. He's like, man, if I'd known that. But yeah, I hung out with code enforcement for about 3 years, and then I had that itch ever since I was a little boy, to be the police officer, try to be the hero, save the day. And I took a swing at it and got on with the Greensboro Police Department, went through their academy, which back in the day, it was what they called paramilitary. I mean, you really earned a very good education going
Yeah,
through
I
that.
bet.
It was 6 months of just straight. First 3 months torture, then the next 3 months they just fill your mind full of education. So that's fun times, and I hung out there for 15, 16 years.
Wow.
And then the opportunity came open with code enforcement to be the manager, and I said, why not? And then that led me to here.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about code enforcement, code compliance. I mean, you talked about, tall grass, abandoned vehicles, things like that. So somebody calls and says, hey, this might be a problem. Or maybe somebody, an officer or somebody's out, notices something and gives you a call. So kind of what happens next and how does that work?
Well, typically when we do get the phone call on the hotline, if it's about a nuisance, for instance, which typically with us going into April, that's going to be our hottest topic is tall grass.
Tall grass.
So with it being tall grass, the complaint could come in on Monday, and we'll try to get the inspector out there that week to see what's going on. But typically it's going to be the second week that we can get out there just due to volume. And once they go out there, we'll give you about 10 days if we find that you are in violation. And at the end of that 10 days, if you can't bring it into compliance or find somebody to help you cut the grass, then we'll issue you a fine.
Okay, so how tall does the grass have to be for it to be out of compliance?
Over 12 inches.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually have a little yardstick with that 12 inches marker painted on it. So they just stand it up and see where it's at.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you talked about your since 18 been working with the city of Greensboro. So you've seen some things, including the Office of Code Enforcement. And to my understanding, you've gone through a bit of a change. Can you talk to us about that change and how it may or may not affect the residents?
Yeah, typically I think it's going to affect the residents to the good. In the past we've always been married to a department, whether it be planning, engineering, inspections, or housing and neighborhood development. We've kind of pinged around from different place to different place, and right now we're trying to get our own set of legs, make our own stand. And with that being said, we kind of can do a little bit more proactive, come up with some separate ideas that we can kind of get behind and push with it just us being there.
Does it strain your resources at all? Or, yeah.
No, we've the city manager's office has been pretty good as far as getting us what we need, because we've been given the front yard parking challenge, and that can be quite the lift, because certain areas of the city that's all you see is front yard parking, and we needed a position to do that, and they gave it to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, when people have these issues, and maybe they can't get their grass cut, or maybe there is nowhere else for them to park, so how do you work with people, and what kind of resources are out there to kind of help people through these things?
I'm glad you brought that up. There's two things that I'm particularly proud of and passionate about. One is when I tell people, when our officers go out to these code enforcement issues, let's say for instance it's a hoarding issue, or just you're in a bad spot as far as the way your house is deteriorating around you. And a lot of times we find that mental health is at play. And about 2 years ago, National Alliance of Mental Illness, we brought them in and got each inspector certified in mental health first aid. Now, we can't go out there and, deem you a certain way. But what we can do is we can kind of understand where you're at, and then we can get the resources, which typically Letitia's group with community safety, she can kind of step in and give us the resources that we need to help get them to where they need to be mentally. So it's a good partnership between us and them. And then the other flip side of the coin is we're not always the bad guy of issuing you the fine, because we have our neighborhood toolbox program. So that program, which you come out there and interviewed us, or what we like to do is if we do see somebody that's in violation, while we're talking to them about the violations that they have and the potential fine, we also say, well, hey, if you don't have a lawnmower to cut this grass, we can give you that lawnmower to cut this grass. If you don't have a hammer to fix this fence, we'll give you the hammer to fix the fence. So at the same time of us lending a helpful hand, we're also kind of eliminating an excuse for them to tell us, well, I can't do it. So we try to take the can't out.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and anybody can take advantage of that.
Right.
We should mention it's not just for people who are out of compliance.
Oh,
if you have a weed eater and it breaks, or if you just can't afford one, or your neighbor says no, you can't borrow mine anymore.
Right. Yeah, we have residents to come out there every week and just kind of kick the tires on what's new.
Yeah.
I live in Brown Summit, so I cannot take advantage of that. Do you have to be?
Nah. But if you need a weed eater, come talk to me.
Okay.
you might have a connection, is what he's saying. But otherwise, it's got to be a resident.
And just to go back for clarification, you mentioned Letitia McNeil, who's the director of
Community Safety.
Community Safety. Okay. And for those that want to be ahead of things and don't want to wait till the last minute for someone to send them a directive of some sort, and they want to be proactive about it, is there a place where residents can go for information?
Honestly, what I tell people is the best way to get involved in your community is your community watch group or your HOA, because typically the leader of the community watch or the president of the HOA has a direct line to us. And if you're involved with your community and you go to your monthly or bi-monthly meetings, and you kind of address the situations that are going on, and you can kind of, as a group, get a list of what you need to address and then come to us, that's very beneficial. Or if you just think that, if you're not a part of anything and you just see something and you want to call, then I always tell people just reach out to our 2111 line, which is 336-373-2111. So, and just like the police department, if you see something, say something. That's what we go by.
What keeps you in this job? I mean, you've been here a long time. What is it that you love so much about it?
Well, honestly, I like being a part of something that I can tell is obviously bigger. And by saying that, when you get to help these citizens and the community groups that I just mentioned, now some can be grateful and some can be like, this is your job anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, it's always fueled me to try to solve a problem. And in code compliance, that's what we get every single hour is a new problem. And what's funny is our office itself, the problems typically never stay the same. And I know that's wild to say because how many different ways can there be a tall grass problem? There's something so minute that's different with every single case that you have to take in perspective. Like if you're going to a house that's just the whole front yard just trash and overgrown and it's causing problems in the neighborhood, but then you get to peeling the layers back behind what the problem is and you see 70-year-old lady that can't get around, or you can see somebody suffering from an illness, whether it be physical or mental.
Right.
And then you kind of got to, at that point, I feel obligated to like, all right, well, I'm not just the code enforcement officer anymore. I have to be the next step. I have to figure out how to get you help. And I think that's what keeps a lot of our crew in this.
That was a great question because I was going to ask you how you worked. Does the officer in you sometimes have to come out in this role, and then the counselor in you has to come out in this role?
Yeah, that's funny you say that because I have an alter ego. And the alter ego is Officer L.G. Roberts. Okay. And typically, my staff sees that guy. Okay. That's if we ain't quite getting things quite right. but he's the guy you typically don't want to see. Like the lovable Larry is like the everyday dude.
That's the one I see in the gym.
That's right. That's the gym guy. Yeah. That's the guy. But if old Officer Robert shows up, it can be tricky.
Okay. Well, you clearly have a heart for this, and you really have to do the work because I'm sure you see some really hard things, and you see some people who are kind of at their low point. And you see people who are angry with you, I'm sure, too. But I can see in you that you have the heart for helping them find a way through it. And that's what we need.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you. Yeah. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Hey, no problem. I enjoyed it.
We appreciate it.
Come back and give us updates.
You got it. Yes, sir.
Thank you again. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in as well. And they can stay tuned in weekly by subscribing to Talk City Greensboro on iTunes, Pandora, and don't forget you can download Talk City from SoundCloud. That's it for this week. Thank you for tuning in to Talk City.
If you like what you hear, please share it with a friend. And don't forget to watch GTN, your official source for news and information about the city of Greensboro. GTN is available on Spectrum Channel 13,
AT&T UVerse Channel 99, and Lumos 31.
Also streaming live on Roku and the city website at greensboro-nc.gov.